Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar brought to you by the World Alliance of International Financial Centers and NVIDIA. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Manal Barnoussi, and I'll be walking you through the program of today's webinar. Let's give a few moments to our audience to jump in. I see more people joining. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Adeline. Hello, Busabat, David. Let's give a few moments to our audience to jump in before I introduce to you our great lineup of speakers today. So this is the third session in the third of a global series of events focusing on artificial intelligence in finance. The first two focused on North America and Europe, and today we're focusing on Africa. So if you want to go and check the recordings from past events, those are made available for you on the WAIFC website. Welcome, everyone. Please drop us a message in the chat box to say hi once you're connected. Tell us which city you're connecting from, which company or industry you're representing. I see more people joining in, so let's give them just a couple more seconds before we kick off our event. We'd love for this session to be interactive, and we want to make sure that we're making the most of this time we're spending together. All right, so I'll give you a quick overview of the Zoom platform we're using today. This is a unique opportunity for us to engage together. At the bottom of the screen, you will see some Zoom features. The Q&A box is the one you want to use to address your questions to our speakers and panelists. That will help us keep track and make sure to address all questions later on. I would encourage you to submit your questions at any time. It's also a unique opportunity for you to interact. So make sure to use that chat box next to the Q&A box to comment or share your thoughts along the way. All right, so I guess we're done getting ourselves ready. So without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce to you, for the welcome note, the Honorable Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance of the Government of Mauritius. Prior to that, he was Minister of Agro-Industry and Food Security from December 2014 to November 2019. Mr. Mahen Kumar Sirutun, welcome to you, Mr. Minister, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone from Mauritius. Let me say I'm very honored to welcome you today to the global webinar on AI in financial services and financial technologies. First and foremost, I would like to commend the World Alliance of International Financial Centers, the World Economic Forum, and the NVIDIA for pioneering this unique series on artificial intelligence in financial services amidst testing times when the whole world is facing strong headwinds surged by the global pandemic. I would also like to emphasize that being a member of the World Alliance of International Financial Centers is indeed a prestige for Mauritius, and it is an honor for us to collaborate with leading IFCs to contribute in fostering sustainable economic growth in global markets. Ladies and gentlemen, today, innovation and technology are the key engines to drive together productivity, to ensure that our distributive capacity is enhanced, and to ensure that we remain resilient and relevant in the face of global turmoil as well as competition. The emergence of AI has heralded the creation of a fourth industrial revolution and has brought the financial services sector to a new dimension. This game-changing adoption of technology has automated a number of our processes, transformed the way we interact with money and the way services are delivered to customers. Fintech and AI have transitioned from being a disruptive threat to an acclaimed key enabler in increasing productivity and quality while substantially decreasing cost. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of Mauritius is one of adaptability, anticipating global changes and taking the right steps to harness opportunities so that the economy continues to grow and develop. The government of Mauritius has adopted a digital strategy which is rooted in sustainable innovation and has established the right framework to graduate the sophistication of the jurisdiction for innovative segments to be nurtured, including fintech activities. With new technologies like blockchain and artificial intelligence becoming the new norms, Mauritius accelerated its move to embrace the technology bandwagon and introduce regulatory developments in the fintech landscape. The non-banking regulator under my purview and my ministry is currently working on 2 state-of-the-art and globally novel licenses: the Custodian of Digital Assets license and the Digital Asset Marketplace license. These 2 licenses will revolutionize the fintech landscape in this part of the world. Additionally, the government, in order to strengthen the foundations and ecosystem for artificial intelligence and to foster innovative entrepreneurship, has embarked upon the creation of the Mauritius Artificial Intelligence Council, comprising members from the public and private sectors, as well as international experts, to drive AI-related activities and advise government accordingly. The government is also working on additional enablers to foster fintech activities, including the setting up of fintech innovation hubs and digital labs for the banking sector and the non-banking sector, rolling out of the digital rupee on a pilot basis, and also introduction of a dedicated QR code at national level to facilitate digital payments. Ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, as a credible and trusted jurisdiction, while stepping into its sought-after role as a global fintech hub, Mauritius has been foremost in harmonizing and revamping for banking and revamping its regulatory framework against money laundering for banking and non-banking financial services, in line with developments in the fintech industry. This is also enabling us to have an early exit from FATF monitoring jurisdictions list. Before I conclude, I would like to highlight that Mauritius has been given the honor to host the 3rd edition of the Africa FinTech Festival in October 2021. This bears testimony to the tangible progress we have made in our journey to become a fintech hub for the region. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond all doubt, artificial intelligence in financial services is set to soar in the coming years, but it will also bring unprecedented challenges, especially in terms of its impact on labor markets. Our objective should be to find a way to adapt our economy and society in ways that allow us to maximize the positive aspects of AI while mitigating the negative impacts. Our future in this unforgiving competitive arena is in our hands. Let us all work together to shape it to our advantage. With these words, I wish you a very fruitful webinar, and I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your words. We very much look forward to the Africa FinTech Festival in October 2021. Thanks again for being with us here today. We are moving on now to some introductory remarks to set the scene and further explore today's topic. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Saïd Ibrahimi, CEO of Casablanca Finance City, which is the financial center in Morocco, North Africa. Mr. Ibrahimi, welcome.
Thank you, Manal. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to join you today for this webinar on AI in finance, dedicated to our African continent. I would like to warmly thank the organizers, the World Alliance of International Financial Centers, the World Economic Forum, and NVIDIA for bringing us together for this important conversation. The theme of our discussion is timely and crucial. According to a recent study, AI is a game changer that can potentially contribute an additional $15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. That is a huge number. To put it into perspective, this is more than the current output of China and India combined. The rapidly developing set of AI technologies has the potential to solve some of the most pressing challenges in Africa, while driving growth and development in key sectors. Many use cases are emerging in healthcare, agriculture, Industry 4.0, and public services, to name a few. In our financial industry, AI can as well have a transformative effect when it comes to automation, cost reduction, increased efficiency, and or designing innovative offerings. AI is already disrupting and will continue to disrupt the way we have been doing our business for ages. There are obvious benefits, yet challenges are still to be overcome to fully reap the benefits of AI. We need to put in place a conducive environment, including access to financing, business-friendly regulation, IT infrastructure, and cybersecurity. We need to continuously upgrade the skills of our talent pool. And we need to seriously tackle the ethical dimensions of AI, the privacy issues, the trust issues, and so on. Policymakers, ecosystem builders, tech companies, academics, and innovative fintechs are already nicely crafting our African AI landscape. I have the conviction that financial centers as well, thanks to their clustering effect, have a pivotal role to play and can positively contribute to this agenda. I wish you all a great webinar and look forward to insightful exchanges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahimi, for your words. Indeed, collaboration is key, and we absolutely need to tackle those challenges, which we'll be talking later on the panel. So our third speaker for today is Ms. Crystal Rujaji, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is a focal point within the international community for dialogue and cooperation on governance challenges and opportunities presented by advanced technologies. Welcome to you, Crystal. Very happy to have you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Manal. Good afternoon to you all. Maybe let me just start with a small clarification. I'm the Managing Director for the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, in Rwanda, which is part of a global network of centers of the World Economic Forum. But thank you so much for inviting me to this important and timely discussion on artificial intelligence and finance. And special thanks to the World Alliance for International Financial Centers, NVIDIA, and of course, my colleagues at the World Economic Forum for giving me the opportunity to share the work that we are doing at the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and specifically within the context of Rwanda. So our work at the center is really focused on closing the gap between technology innovation and technology governance. We often have a scenario where, you know, the private sector is taking the elevator while government is taking the stairs when it comes to emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. But I think the reality is that we all have a lot to learn, both the public and the private sector, when it comes to how we can fully maximize the benefits and also minimize the risks of artificial intelligence to make sure that it's really used as a tool to accelerate the benefits to all of society, you know, in an inclusive and responsible manner. So our work at the center is really, you know, about taking a multi-stakeholder approach to technology governance, bringing together, of course, governments, private sector, academia, civil society, and really bringing all of these critical stakeholders to the table to collectively shape a firm foundation for technology governance. So in the context of Rwanda, we're on a steady trajectory for becoming a hub for technology innovation and also pioneer when it comes to technology governance. We're already leading the world with innovative use cases for emerging technologies such as drones, as well as agile and risk-based regulatory frameworks for these fourth industrial revolution technologies that really require that you know, agile approach. And it's our intention to be able to create governance tools for technology that can be piloted in Rwanda and scaled to the rest of the world. Now, Rwanda also has a vision of becoming a preferred financial center for international investment in Africa. And this vision has really been grounded in the recent launch of Kigali International Financial Center. We're establishing an effective and progressive regulatory framework that's conducive to modern financial instruments that can serve customers and investors more efficiently in a safe and trusted manner. Excuse me, we've been working very closely with our colleagues at Kigali International Financial Center, as well as local financial institutions, global financial institutions, and of course the regulatory authorities to help shape critical legislation, namely the data protection and privacy law, which is currently being defended in Parliament, as well as the national AI policy. So these critical instruments are really important to ensure trusted and secure cross-border financial transactions, as well as to enable the adoption of AI and other data-intensive technologies in the financial services space. Now, we recognize that there is a significant role to play when it comes to AI in terms of creating products that are more customer-centric, that are more efficient, that are easier to use. And Africa has actually already proven to be a world leader in this space when it comes to how fintech can be used to advance financial inclusion and innovative ways that you can use to address reaching the underserved population as well as underbanked. Now, there's also a tremendous opportunity when it comes to using AI to create modern tools for risk management, for compliance, as well as banking supervision. And Rwanda is currently developing a strategic roadmap around regulatory technology, including how Rwanda can really fully harness the benefits of AI combined with RegTech for financial institutions as well as regulatory bodies. So at the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we are here to play a convening role to bring all stakeholders to the table, not just in Rwanda and not just in Africa, but for those who seek to do business on the continent. It's very clear that the opportunities are abundant, and it's imperative that we act collectively and with a sense of urgency to create a safe and trusted environment for artificial intelligence and finance. And with the advent of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's even more important that we have a coordinated approach to unlocking opportunities for AI in finance through interoperable regulation and common standards. So we look forward to working with the Global Alliance for International Financial Centers and all of the colleagues who are here present on the call from the public and private sector, because it really will take, an all hands on deck approach to fully harness the strategic benefits of AI to create a vibrant, progressive, and competitive financial ecosystem for Africa. So I thank you so much for your kind attention today, for giving me the opportunity to share a perspective from Rwanda. Please enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Rachel Rujeje, for your insights and perspective from Rwanda and more globally what you do on an international level. Thank you so much for being with us today. Last but not least, for the introductory remarks, please join me in welcoming to the screen Ms. Kay Callot, Head of Emerging Areas at NVIDIA. She will be giving the final introductory remarks and welcoming a great lineup of speakers for the panel discussion. I'll be back right before the closing remarks. Welcome to you, Kate, and over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Manal, and hi, everyone. I'm Kate Callot, and I'm currently the head of emerging areas at NVIDIA. And I'm really, really honored to be able to speak here during this webinar and welcome a myriad of experts and speakers. Africa is the world's fastest growing continent in terms of software developers, and technical hubs and ecosystem have been sprouting across the continent over the past few years. And an accompanying effect is an uptick in local engineering talent. And as we see advancements in technological techniques in AI and blockchain that are accelerating, the developer boom is showing no signs of slowing down. And this is really opening a myriad of opportunities for the public and the private sector, as well as startups, developers on the African continent. The entire ecosystem is being put to work to go and solve some of the most pressing challenges and unleash technological innovation and try to solve challenges that the population has been facing for years. And this includes challenges in financial services, of course. On a continent where still a large chunk of the population remains unbanked and uninsured, this represents a land of opportunities and possibility to accelerate financial inclusion. After the mobile money revolution, can the fourth industrial revolution, with the help of AI, accelerate this race and bank the unbanked? What are the predominant use cases in financial services in Africa? How is the public sector integrating these technologies? How are they collaborating with developers and startups? These are all questions that we will dive into this panel, as we have the pleasure to be joined by experts from very diverse backgrounds, ranging from public sector to private sector to startups. And to kick us off, I would like to turn to Dr. Nick Bradshaw first. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Kate. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Hi, thank you for joining us for this panel. Nick, you've been at the forefront of the AI industry in Africa for the past few years. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us more about some of the research, some of the trends you've seen emerging in the region and how the ecosystem has changed over the past few years?
Thanks, Kate, and hello to everybody who's joined us today on the event. Yeah, I've been in the tech industry for 25 years, and I've specifically been based in South Africa for the last 10 years. I've worked in Europe and the US, and I currently run a company called AI Media for the last 3.5 years, operating out of Cape Town. We're essentially an analysis, events and publishing company, and we've been looking at the business landscape in the African continent over the last 4 years. That before there was any real analysis at the sort of commercial level, there was a very vibrant R&D and developer community across the region. And we actually filled a gap by establishing a business-focused community and launched AI Expo Africa, which you can see above me here, which was the first large business-focused gathering, trade event and conference in the Africa region, which we launched in 2018. And since then, we've actually been doing research on looking at this landscape. So looking at companies that are here local on the African continent, looking at companies involved in AI who are outside the Africa continent and see this area as an opportunity for growth. I think the analysis that we've done ourselves, and also some of the analysis that we've analyzed from others around the region, is that there are 4 main tech hubs on the continent, namely Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, and South Africa from a technology perspective, but also from an investment perspective. Those are the 4 main regions that attract technology investment. And if we look at a sort of slightly deeper dive onto that, the encouraging thing from the main theme in this program is that the vast majority of that investment is in the fintech space. So specifically startups, companies developing solutions for fintech. But there is a gradually emerging sector called deep tech, which broadly speaks to the AI landscape. And what we've done is we've done some analysis to look at the companies then that are spread across the Africa region. And about 90% of them are located in 6 key countries: South Africa, Tunisia, Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and Ghana. We do have Morocco and Mauritius following up as well. And they account for about 95% of the spread of the companies that we actively see involved in this segment. If we look at the kinds of things that we're seeing in terms of commercial trends, a lot of the, if we look at in terms of demand, we see the banks and the insurance companies demanding solutions in robotic process automation, conversational AI, so where they interface with customers, big data analytics and insights, and then a growing adoption and a willingness to adopt AI bespoke solutions, so solutions that will solve a very specific topic. And then if we look at the non-commercial side, obviously we're looking at countries now starting to produce their own national strategies, Kenya being the first country on the African continent to issue its national strategy for AI, accompanied by blockchain in 2019. We're now starting to see the emergence of AI associations, one of the most recent ones being Tunisia. And then we're actually looking at a growing theme of AI for good. So in the non-commercial space, we're looking at companies that are specifically coming up with solutions to address UN SDGs, and then also looking at areas where AI can be used for good in that regard. So that's a quick snapshot, but there's a whole raft more data to share in the coming months.
Thanks, Nate, for this very interesting background. I think you've been I've been fortunate enough to be able to participate to AI Expo last year and be able to talk there. I wanted to get your perspective a little bit on how you see the ecosystem has evolved based on the people who are attending this large AI conference, Pan-African conference, and trying to understand who is actually driving the innovation and who are the main actors in this space on the continent.
Well, I mean, I think you've got a distinct different communities. I mean, you've got academic universities. Obviously, there's a lot of fundamental research going on in the African university segment. We actually showcase some of those through our poster exhibition at the show. We've got the actual entrepreneurial ecosystem. So startups ranging from everything from chatbots through to some of the topics that I've talked to before. You've got the developer community. So if you look at, for example, Zindi, which is a data science challenge platform, which launched in 2018, they've now got 26,000 engineers on that platform, solving all sorts of problems and challenges, whether it's government, commercial, NGO. And then we have that, as I say, that other sector, which is the AI for good. So the non-commercial sector. Those are what I see as the main kind of pulls for investment, business entrepreneurism, the spinning out of IP, to develop solutions and businesses that talk to those problems.
Thanks, Nick. That's a perfect segue on our for our second speaker, Dries Larmani. Dries, I'd love to turn it to you. We've heard about the trends and how the ecosystem has changed a little bit from Nick. Looking ahead, what do you think can make the region a leader in AI? And interestingly enough, you have a background which is half between research and half between software development. So can you please give us your perspective on this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Karen, of having me. Actually, I have two views. One is from the 20 years having been in the financial sector as a business developer, and afterward I've launched and founded M, which is a startup focusing on AI and building AI solution for the financial sector. Actually, we do believe that the region can become, has the ability and the human resources to become a leader in AI. And as testimony of our belief, we have recently opened operations in Rabat, in Morocco. However, I would like to emphasize that there is 3 hurdles that the US and the Europe have experienced during the last 5-10 years. The first one is 4 over 5 AI projects fail. And this is because the solution has usually overpromised and under-delivered. The solutions have not had the proper business value, and the software company and the clients haven't defined the path toward the solution, which can please the business, the IT department, risk and regulation, and so on. And we've seen many projects come and go because they have set the marketing, for marketing reasons, the bar for AI problem solving performance at levels which cannot be reached very quickly. And this is something which is important for us. The second thing is what we have seen, and this is coming from Gartner, is that for the 20% project which go through, they take between 6 to 12 months to get up and running and to go to production. And this has been the fact that financial institutions and their providers have carried the IA project differently from other software development projects. And they have failed in data architecture, infrastructure, security, retraining, cost, and so on and so forth. And we have really seen some projects where when the box goes on, the provider has to go back to the drawing and rebuild the process because they haven't thought about all the issues about data architecture and infrastructure. And we truly believe that when we go into IA project, you have to have in mind more than the data science, more than the one branch of the project, but have a holistic view regarding how to conduct it. And last but not least is the human resources experience and knowledge. And we think that the human resources for AI is much more important than financing or other issues, because a successful IA solution requires testing, failure, retraining, understanding and knowing continuously. And unfortunately, the lack of experience is the most important point in failure of IA projects. And because first it's failed to show that the startups have the proof of value they are built in. And for clients, it's for those who put in place the IA solution, they find it difficult to prove that this investment is worthwhile. So, and this is one reason why we have built in our Rabat operation a set of training and experiencing with our people in order to make them conduct research on R&D projects while they improve their product to clients. So in nutshell, there is 3 things to take in mind, which are under promise and over deliver. IA projects is not different from any software edition project, and it should be conducted as it is. And 3, maintain the human resources experience, the most important things to follow in aim to make Africa the AI leader that we all hope for.
Thank you, Dries, for this amazing insights. And one of the points you closed on that I would love to expand on and turn it to our next speaker is around the human resources and what we also call the capacity building. There is, in Africa, a lot of the developers and the AI practitioners are self-taught. They learn through non-traditional pathways institution. Actually, half of the developers learn through non-traditional pathways institution, and then go and create their startups. And there are many successful startups in the continent, and we're very fortunate to have one of them who is with us today on the panel. So Ni, you are the CEO of CEST AI. Your startup is the perfect example of the capacity building needed locally in AI on the continent. Can you please tell us a little bit about you, about CEST, about Mozuma, and give us some background on the use cases in the region? How is AI being used in the financial services industry, more specifically in Ghana? You on mute.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. So at CEST, we're a software innovation company where we focus on financial technology, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. So on the financial technology side, we have our payment product, which is Mozuma, which is an online payment system, and we've connected to various partners around the world, especially on the remittance side. We have partners from the United States, the UK, Germany, Netherlands, and we've helped them to disseminate remittances all the way to Ghana. So on that side, we have done quite a lot of work on that side. We've processed about $100 million worth of transactions since inception till now. And how we are applying AI in this particular phases in different perspectives. So one, we work with a lot of natural language processing. So NLP, which is used for automated customer service products on both Mozuma side for our chatbots. And we also extend these services to some of our partners on that level. And also we do a lot of data analytics. So data analytics in the form of unsupervised learning, because of the huge number of transactions that we get on our platform, we're able to run clustering algorithms on these transactions to find patterns within the transactional pattern and landscape. So from that perspective, once we have this data, we're able to share it with some stakeholders such as the government and all to kind of understand the deep nature of the financial ecosystem in Ghana. And also, once we have this data, we're also able to understand how we can really solve the problem of financial inclusion. Because at a point, we realized that a lot of people weren't getting access to financial services. And once we have the data coming in and we have the understanding of what people are using their money for, then we can help the government to create policies or help the financial institutions to tailor products to better serve the populace on the downstream side. And also to talk about the human resource side, I also happen to be the chairman of the Artificial Intelligence Association of Ghana, where we are an ecosystem of AI practitioners, engineers, researchers, and academics. I think we're more than 200 members now, which is very, very good for such a niche technology such as AI. And what we do focus to is to create a knowledge base and to create the team of expertise to focus on AI-based projects in Ghana. And then we also help each other create a good framework for best practices and for how we can apply AI in different sectors. So for example, we've been working with NVIDIA on the emerging chapters and where we help people train most of our developers on AI technologies. And we're also trying to focus on other sectors where we can apply AI, such as AI in healthcare, AI in agri-tech, and also expanding AI beyond the traditional financial systems that we have on board. So I think from our perspective, this is how we are approaching AI in financial technology in Ghana, and also how we're expanding the technological knowledge landscape amongst the developer base.
Thanks, Ni. You are the perfect example of how the AI innovation in Africa can be driven in a grassroots way. Because if you look at the way the innovation is being driven in different parts of the world, in Africa it comes from startups, developers, and grassroots communities who are also helping the public sector catch up with all this technology. can you just tell us a little bit more about how you're working with the Ghana government to help them understand what are the benefits of the fintech, of the AI tools and innovation that is being driven outside of the continent by startups and developers like you?
All right, great. Thank you for all that one there. So on the governmental side, we have worked with different stakeholders. So we have worked on with the UNDP on the Ghana Waste project. We've also worked on with the Ministry of Finance and also on the Ghana Fiscal Services. So let me talk more on the Ministry of Finance side. So Ministry of Finance consulted us to help them build the roadmap for the next age of digital financial services in Ghana. And in helping that and in consulting with them, we made them understand the role that AI can play in the next phase of the technological landscape in Ghana. For example, every Ghanaian, should I say, governmental department wants to apply digitization. So we're having digitization of applying for your passport, applying for other financial services as well. But the key focus there is that how can we understand all the data that's extracted into the government? And that is where AI and data analytics comes into play. So we are then help them to understand what role that we can play in applying deep learning and machine learning tools to understand the big data in the country, because the government gets huge troves of data and they use regular statistical methods to understand the data. But when we use deep learning, we're able to get deeper insights onto how all these things in the government come together to play a good role in the financial sector. So on the Ministry of Finance sector, that's how we've been able to apply it. And also, I think I was also like to speak on this one when we also consulted on the Ghana Payment Systems Bill, where we also contributed on how AI and financial services can play a role in the next phase of the, should I say, Ghana's payment system. So I think on that two perspectives, we have tried to convince government, even though the government is very conservative when it comes to artificial intelligence, they think AI is just robots. But it goes beyond robots. There's a lot more that we can do on the software level, on the data level, on the insights level, and the analytical level for the government as well. So that's on that level.
Thanks, Ni. It's amazing to see the collaboration between startups, government, and how this ecosystem is actually working hand in hand to help advance innovation locally in Ghana. This is a perfect segue. You talked about the technology, and this is a perfect segue into our next speaker. So Johan, welcome. Obviously, NVIDIA is a leader in AI, but my question would be, as a private sector company, what would you say is NVIDIA's role in helping startups like CEST, or helping the public sector accelerating AI adoption in financial services on the continent?
Yeah, thanks, Kate, for the question. Yeah, I think NVIDIA really is doing a lot here in certain dimensions, because as we heard before, AI models, to build them, to implement them, it's a very complex thing with many dimensions and factors in the equation. So basically our support to increase the or accelerate the AI adoption in financial services in Africa for startups is rested on basically 3 pillars. So first of all, it's the computing platform, obviously. So what is a computing platform? It is basically a combination of the hardware that you have and the software. For example, we have more than 150 software development kits available for download for free for startups, for banks, for insurance companies, to make use of computing platforms, of accelerating AI model development and also implementation and production or inferencing. And these SDKs, these software development kits, they really help you and the startups to make things very easy. So it's very important that many steps in there are already pre-computed, aggregated, so make your life easy, so you can really focus on your project, on your value creation in the end. So some people call this even democratizing AI in some sense. And it doesn't really matter where the hardware is located. It can be a public cloud, but it can also be a data center or a co-location. Some people even have small supercomputers in their offices these days. So all these things are possible. And by the way, we hold a lot of world records in AI. So accelerated AI is really a key factor, and that's the outcome of a computing platform, because you can just make better use of your data science resources, your data science teams and the skills they have. And you can also leverage the existing infrastructure in a more efficient way. And in some AI applications, it's really important to have a real-time response. For example, in fraud detection or anti-money laundering, it's really very critical to identify these things in almost real time. And if we think about chatbots, you want to have a good conversation with a machine that is responsive and fast. So it's very clear that accelerated AI is very important factor. And by the way, also we lead the international list of the fastest and most sustainable supercomputers. So we also help nations and research institutions and universities to really do their research work, for example, also in the COVID-19 research. Recently, we opened one of the fastest UK supercomputer for especially dedicated to this purpose. The second pillar, I think, that's really important beside the computing platform is the ecosystem. So NVIDIA is a global company today, is the leader in computing, but it's also still a startup. So it's very agile and working with a large ecosystem around this computing infrastructure. So we really use a lot of open source approaches. For example, leveraging Python, the Python community, very important for the data science, and C++ and other languages, and really try to accelerate what we already have. So not to reinvent the wheel, but really activate this ecosystem. And this is really important. We heard this before. The ecosystem has to be made up of many participants. So it's not only the startups and the banks and the supervisors. It's also associations, governments, investors. We heard this, and also close collaboration with universities. So we need to activate all these stakeholders in an ecosystem to really collaborate here, because as we heard before, AI implementation is very complex. So many hands to help in that sense. So activating ecosystem, activating open source, that's really important. And the last contribution or pillar I would like to talk about is the technology leadership, thought leadership, and the trusted advisor role. So we really work globally with financial institutions, and we try also to see what is the best use case. Where can you really make best use of AI? Where does it make sense to use it? And where does it not make sense to use it? And when you implement it, really to make sure that you have a clear business focus. So you have either increasing returns, or you have lower cost, or sometimes you use AI to be compliant with regulation, for example. And also very important in banks that you can use AI to really manage your risk better in a data-driven way, which is important in financial crisis, for example, right? And also the supervisory landscape, it's important for them to fulfill their mandate and the policies in a data-driven way. So we also help them as trusted advisors. And last but not least, it's really important to build AI that is, in a sense, transparent and accessible for humans still. So we have to overcome this black box explainability gap these days. So we are working a lot on building software and acceleration for creating and implementing trustworthy AI, explainable AI, and responsible AIs, and always make sure that there's a human in the loop that can still understand what the machine has learned, to validate and to check if you are still on the right track. And also, obviously, all these models and utilization of data, it has to be in a very safe environment. Privacy issues are there. The models don't have to be biased, and they have to be fair. So all this can also partially be addressed with computing power. So that's where we really support to build these AI. That's what we need, especially in financial services. And last but not least, we also see more and more utilization of AI and big data in sustainable finance. Yeah, to really use the data you have and make smart decisions to really track the impact of climate change and climate risk, and also to make sure that investors are able to find the cleanest companies and also to identify greenwashing. So all these things can be done and can be supported by AI and data. And this is really a really important and emerging topic.
Thanks, Johan. It's really interesting to see how NVIDIA is finding themselves at the center of the ecosystem with interaction with the public sector, like you mentioned, working with government on the AI nation side, working with startups like CEST, CEST.ai, working with companies, trying to get them to understand how to implement these tools, and then at the same time enabling developers, researchers, and academia to go and unleash innovation. That's the perfect segue actually into our next speaker and our next topic, which is going to be a perspective coming from the public sector, which we haven't heard about yet. So I'm honored to welcome Ken Ponosamy. So Ken, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about the Economic Development Board of Mauritius? Speaking from a public sector perspective, how is Mauritius embracing AI in multiple sectors?
Thank you very much, and let me echo also the views of the other panelists to really thank the World Association of the International Financial Centers, the World Economic Forum, and NVIDIA for this very good initiative. It is also a matter of pride and privilege for the EDB to be part of the World Association of International Financial Centers and to participate, obviously, in this global series focused on Africa. Just for the benefit of attendees, the EDB is the apex organization that looks at investment promotion, development body, facilitation, and trade, as well as strategic planning for Mauritius. So we work under the aegis of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, and we are really synergizing efforts across all sectors of the economy with both public and private sector organizations to meet the goal set for the country. It's a merger of three key institutions, the Trade Institution, Enterprise Mauritius, the Board of Investment, which was looking at investment, and the Mauritius Financial Services Promotion Agency in 2018. Now, coming to AI, obviously, we are very much involved and also aware of the fact that AI is transforming the world, is really changing the lives of people. And we've seen it with the health pandemic, the global pandemic, how AI has actually been instrumental in finding new technologies and finding ways of keeping us connected, but also sustain mankind. So for us, AI is the future. And we know that technology and a combination of artificial intelligence, the new ways of engagement will really help in terms of improving productivity, potential for growth, and the quality of life of people. In Mauritius, from the public sector perspective, we have obviously from the highest level in government, and we've heard the Minister of Financial Services talked earlier about the importance given to harnessing artificial intelligence and to foster innovative entrepreneurship. So there was also the setting up of the Mauritius Artificial Intelligence Council to comprise public and private sector members. And right now, there is also the introduction of the Mauritius Emerging Technologies Council. And the objective of that, from the government perspective, is to advise government on formulation of national policies and strategies in emerging technologies, promote the application of emerging technologies in line with national economic and social objectives, and also to advise government on matters related to emerging technologies with respect to their adoption, use, development, harnessing value and wealth creation, research and innovation and capacity building. So just to say that from the government point of view, the public sector point of view, there's already a framework in place to embrace artificial intelligence, to embrace technology, and to also permeate the new technologies and AI in different spheres of economic activity in Mauritius. And in terms of the financial services, there's already significant progress being made. There's already a lot of work that has been engaged with. And the EDB recently was involved in the granting of regulatory sandbox licenses. And we have given a number of licenses to a number of projects in the fintech space, including AI technology, enabled technology services. I would also like to say that AI today, where we see it from now the private sector perspective, although it is dominant in financial services, we are also seeing other sectors such as agro-industry, which is witnessing an increasing use of AI-related technologies. So basically what we've seen recently in Mauritius, for example, there has been projects for the growing of vegetables where the promoters, the entrepreneurs have used AI to control temperature and humidity. And that has helped to ensure that there is a higher yield in terms of their production. We're also looking at service delivery in e-government services, and there are a number of companies that are adopting AI technologies or developing related AI-related applications in service deliveries. Companies already using for the financial services or even in the food industry. I must say that the Economic Development Board also, from our perspective, we have introduced the National E-Licensing Platform. And one of the key features of that platform is also to use artificial intelligence technologies to assist businesses, users when submitting their application and to accelerate the processing of those applications by government officers. In the National Electronic Licensing System, which is basically a platform for the processing, submission, processing, and approval of various permits and licenses, the AI has been used to identify documents such as passport, for example, birth certificates, to extract personal details and automatically cross-check with other data sources. We have also introduced chatbots and also better interactions with the business community. So I must say that from that perspective, the government of Mauritius is putting all efforts to ensure that AI becomes mainstream, that we provide the ecosystem and the frameworks required for us to move forward using technology and artificial intelligence to boost productivity. And we are facilitating as much as possible its adoption across different spheres of our economy. So that's what I can tell you from the perspective of the Economic Development Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ken. It's incredible to see and to hear about examples, practical examples of how Mauritius is implementing AI and what you can see on the public sector side. I think a little bit, I would like to carry on to having this public sector perspective. And this is the perfect transition to our next speaker, Danesowa Thakur. I think a little bit on what Ken has mentioned. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the implementation, the practical aspects of AI in Mauritius, but more specifically, the use case you see your commission implementing in the next few years, which will be tied to mostly the financial services sector.
Thank you, Kate. And let me start by first commending all the organizers for this very interesting initiative. And I think such initiatives need to be repeated because at this point, there is a need to vulgarize the field of AI, which people think is basically very new. But while being new, it is also adding value to existing services. So coming back to your question, basically, what we see in terms of the practical aspects, and the previous speaker, my good friend Ken, has already given a number of use cases. From the Commission's perspective, what we see is that a service requiring or using AI can be basically of two can be categorized in two ways. First is that it's a service on its own, meaning that a full-fledged AI-based service, and in most cases, it is a service which is adding value to an existing financial service. So we've been talking about advisory services, chatbots, etc., and which is adding an existing service and in adding some value. And then both of them can therefore merge into two broad categories. Either we already have a regulatory framework for it or the existing service, in which case the regulators involved in those spaces would have a talk and discussion to see the extent to which these can be enabled. And when I speak about regulators in the financial service, we will have at two ends of the spectrum, we have the Bank of Mauritius looking into the bank-led services and the Financial Services Commission taking care of the non-bank activities. But we two regulators have now joined hands together to have a single desk for processing of such requests, so that in the background, we decide who is looking at which aspect to it. So coming back to the fact that, let us say there exists regulation, but this needs adaptation, we are very open to sit down with the promoters to understand what is being proposed and to work out. In case we can't assimilate it immediately, we will give them what we call a sandbox period to test and for us to understand what is required, and then to come back with the necessary regulations. And in case there is no regulation at all, as I mentioned previously, we would go back to a full-fledged discussion and to decide basically on which of the regulators will provide its a regulatory sandbox license for the promotion of that product. So in a nutshell, we are open to all sorts of discussions that lead to enriching and giving value-added services to even our existing products or adding new products to our range. And we believe that we are enablers of technology. We do not stifle the innovation. And we have proved so far that we have a very adaptive approach to regulation, and we have been changing a lot over the years. Now, with respect to the second part of your question, where what are the use cases we see in the coming new years, we already have at the level of the Financial Services Commission some robotic related AI services license, which is already we already have as a license range of product. And we are also working towards new services which would, and in some areas would be, I would say, already catered to take on board if there are AI services. Let me give you an example. We already have license for exchanges, but if we have a new application where the exchange or part of the traditional exchange service is either based on an AI service, we are also ready to consider such areas. I would like to stress that the FSC is also a member of the Global Financial Innovation Network, the GFIN, and we are therefore constantly participating in the discussions and the forum, and therefore whenever there are new areas where we believe it is going to add value or we think that it needs to be adapted to the local context, we have a team to study those and then propose those solutions. A last point I would say is that in terms of the way we interact, we have got a process of consultation therefore, we discuss a lot with the industry players, those who have innovative products, and those who want to come up with new ideas. We do provide a forum for discussion, for consultation before we embark on the products. And this leads me to the last point with respect to what we do, is that both the Financial Services Commission and the Bank of Mauritius, we are coming up with our Finnovation Lab to allow prospective promoters or those who have got parts of the idea to test in an environment where we can provide and allow them to plug in with the existing systems, so that we can therefore create a more entrepreneurship way of giving, let us say, an end to some basic ideas. So that's what I have to say with respect to what you mentioned.
Thank you so much, Thakur. So I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna ask a question for the broader panel, and if you have a perspective on this, please chime in. I'd like to ask, where does this panel see the African AI ecosystem in the next 5 to 10 years? What are the biggest opportunities, but also what do you think would be the blind spots or the danger? What, as a community, as an ecosystem, representing different perspectives, like on this panel, which is public sector, startups, developers, research, private sector, what should we put emphasis on to get the continent where it should be in AI and data science, technology, innovation, most specifically in the financial services? So who would like to answer the question first?
Okay. Can I dive in, Kate, and answer?
Sure. Please do.
Yeah, I'm just really picking up on the point to talk to you to that question that Driss mentioned, in the sense that, and I've seen it locally in the region, is companies, startups that start out as a solutions company thinking they're a product company, and vice versa. I think for us to see the success and the spin out of some of the young companies that are emerging in this region, that they need to set that out very clearly from the beginning. It's very difficult to be both and be successful. So I think just a word of advice to companies that are starting out and getting investment: very clearly define what kind of company you are and what your product is. There's no problem being a solutions company and solving other people's problems, but it's very difficult to be both. And I think that's just a real world observation that I've seen here in this region.
That's amazing. Thanks, Nick, for your perspective. Is there any other panelist who would like to take a stab at answering this question?
Okay, I'd like to chip in on this one too.
Sure.
Yes, so I think for the next 5 years, I am seeing the African continent precisely grow in first tech hubs. A lot of tech hubs will start sprouting up, and also the emergence of the AI technologies will start becoming a normal thing that we all use, to start finding its way into our everyday product. And even looking at it from the human capacity perspective, on the AI association side, we keep on training new recruits, especially from the universities, trying to embed AI into every technology that they are bringing out there, and also organizing hackathons, constant hackathons based on the particular areas, if it's agriculture, if it's economics, if it's healthcare. And from these hackathons, we're able to identify some products or some services that will be beneficial to the ecosystem. From there, then we can pitch them out to investors who would then pump in some kind of finance into these projects, then spout them up. Because we need more of these innovative companies. We need more of CEST, we need more consumers and out there to kind of grow this ecosystem. Because the more we are, the more we can grow Africa, and the more we can put Africa on the global map for artificial intelligence. In the same way, even on our side, is it because we placed artificial intelligence into the finance space in which we use it? That's how come we're recognized in the Forbes 30 under 30 list for finance in AI.
So I feel like other startups can also implement these things or raise other people to get to this level where we can do things on the highest, shall I say, level and scale up across Africa. I think that is really possible.
Thanks, Nick. This actually resonates with something that Nick has said earlier around the emergence of deep tech. If I were to answer this question, I would say, can the next Tesla, Google, or NVIDIA be from the African continent? Can the next deep tech company actually be from the African continent? Dennis, you wanted to add to the answers?
Yes, thank you. Just 2 words. Basically, I'm speaking strictly from a regulatory perspective. First thing is that for those enthusiasts who would be in this area, in 5 years' time, I do see lots of potential because Africa has proved, basically, when we go past 5 years, that there is this technology adoption. 2 things is not to lose focus on what the problem that we are solving. There are many technologies that come in and basically we just forget, but what is it? Is it I think a value? And I've been speaking about the value added service. And second, you mentioned this point of blind spots. And I would say that there is a need for the ecosystem to evolve together with the ideas of the people. In many cases, we find ourselves that, let us say, you would rely on a government-based or a public service to help you out. You've got the ideas, and in Africa, we would be inevitably using what is being provided, let us say, mentioned a cloud, etc., outside our region. So this is where I believe that government should also come up with the service that let us provide also technology parks for these people to be able to host, so that they do not care about the public side of it or the service side of it as a public good. They just do the development and the technology of it. Thank you.
That's a great point. The government should, and the public sector should act as an enabler for the developers and for developers and innovators to go and build applications. I like what you say about not lose focus on the problem. We often tend to forget that technology, AI are just tools to help us build solutions which solve a specific problem, and they're not an end to the mean. They're just an enabler for us to improve lives and build solutions which will help accelerate potentially economic developments in part of the world. Is there anybody else who wants to answer this question? I see Crystal.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I can jump in. Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity around using AI to close gaps in financial inclusion. And I already alluded to this as well as some of the other colleagues on the panel. But we also need to recognize that it's a very complex problem to solve, because we need to make sure that we're really designing products that are context specific. So for instance, I think that there's so much more that can be done with credit scoring to be able to use, technologies like AI and blockchain, looking at alternative data points that are really aligned more to the mass population and then the different segments of society and what their lifestyles are like, and really designing products that are fit for purpose. And then the other, complicated element, I think, is around explainability. And this is a particularly difficult issue when you're talking about a population where many people may not be as digitally literate or digitally savvy, but making sure that they're able to understand their rights if AI is impacting a credit decision, for instance, and be able to exercise their agency when it comes to the negative implications. So I think definitely the opportunities are there in terms of using AI to advance financial inclusion, but we really need to be cautious and leverage some of the lessons that have been learned around the world when it comes to bias and making sure that we are creating AI products that are ethical.
Thanks, Crystal. That's definitely something we haven't touched more in this panel, but to consider and really include ethical and unbiased use of AI as a foundational layer of products and solutions that innovators build. Is there anybody else who wants to chime in?
Yes, if I may, from Mauritius
Sure.
again. From our perspective, the way I see it is that the crisis, the health pandemic has forced us really to think out of the box and to see in what way technology and advanced technologies can help us to resolve some of the issues. And I believe that in the next 5 years, this will grow in terms of prominence and importance with respect to how we engage and how do we do business across and to gain efficiency and to be able to be on the market. So I believe there is going to be really a strong boost. There's clear benefits, we've seen it. And what I can say also is that from the education point of view, the landscape, there are now more and more people that are involved in those fields. And that will really help to enhance the deployment and the spread of artificial intelligence and the deep learning, the new ways of engagements and so on. I must say that it's not just on one specific sector, but we can see it across the board in all the sectors. Whether we talked about the shipping industry, for example, the airline industry, or other services now, the artificial intelligence will really pick up from our perspective, from what we see. In Mauritius itself, there are tremendous potentials in the ICT sector. For example, we know there are people now that are involved in that space in the new startups. So I'm very confident that with the right ecosystem, with the right frameworks and the right mindset, we will be able to embrace artificial intelligence in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Dries, I see you unmuted yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Hi. If I may add one thing, I think that in contrast with the US, it is not about having new Teslas, but it's rather bringing all the companies which are already established to cope with the growth expectations for Africa. I truly believe that our role will be to bring AI, high technology solutions, to people who have already the positions in the market, be it in the public or the private sector, and help them cope with the rapid growth expectations and help them bring more solutions. AI is, as you say, is much a mean than a target, but it can help for subject from healthcare to agriculture to financial services and financial exclusions, to accelerate the way we can bring solutions to end clients. And this will come from a true collaboration between technology startups, research, and public and private sector. It's more collaborative approach rather than an approach where we have destructive or new entrants like we have seen in the US or some case in Europe.
Thanks, Dries. And last, I see Johan would like to also chime in from a private sector perspective on the question.
Yeah, just very briefly, what has been mentioned before by Crystal, for example, building this trustworthy AI is really key, especially in financial services, because trust was always the foundation for making banking business, money business, and now we have AI, so it's very clear that the AI also needs to be trustworthy, right? So, and we are currently engaged in some initiatives in Europe, in the European Commission and Gaia X, the European Cloud project, where we really try to establish a platform for algorithmic auditing, right? So that means you have a number of automated tests that an AI has to go through, which checks the fairness, that there's not unwanted bias, that things are explainable and transparent, and maybe even go further to even certificating things maybe even create synthetic data with AI that stress a certain third-party AI models. So really to be able to generate this trust. And also I would like to make one comment on the, I used to be a startup entrepreneur myself. So I think we need these brave startups really, but what's really important is that the entire ecosystem supports them. So you need to have computing infrastructure, you need to have investment money, right? You need to have big companies helping, supporting, and you need sandbox environments, experimentation environments to where also the regulator, can make some comments on the system or at the new solution. So all these people, all these stakeholders need to collaborate, I think, to make new unicorns, local unicorns that have new great products to the benefit of society and to the citizens. So AI is just a tool, right? So this is what I wanted to share as my opinion, what is needed in kind of ingredients and what the AI has to be: trustful, responsible AI, ethical AI, explainable AI.
Thanks so much, Johan. Definitely trustworthy AI is an important point to consider. That brings us to the close of the panel. It actually looks like we have questions from the audience before I recap. So the first question is how AI helps financial institutions and businesses quickly build accurate predictive models that enhance decision-making around issues like digital wealth management, direct marketing, blockchain, lending, and more. I think Crystal touched on it a little bit. Is there anyone who wants to add a bit of perspective around this question?
Okay, I think I can add a bit to this one. So I think I want to talk about the digital waste. I heard digital waste management, if that's right?
Yes.
Yes, so we did some work with the UNDP on creating a digital waste platform system for the entire country, for the entire Ghana. And what we did was that platform was supposed to sort of link the people who buy and people who sell plastic waste, because they realized that the trading of plastic waste in the ecosystem was not monitored. It was being done in the informal sector, but they wanted to digitize it so that we can have more insights on what was happening. So what we did was that by linking the people who are buying waste and the people who are selling the waste, we're able to find out some form of trends and analysis. And then henceforth, we can run predictive analysis on maybe every month or every 2 weeks. Some people buy some particular amount of metric tons of waste from one region to another. And by aggregating all these data, we're then able to pass it on to the GSS or the EPA or the Ministry of Environment and Sanitation to understand the movement of resource recovery in the ecosystem. So that is like a practical ground case, use case meant on how we apply machine learning or deep learning in that particular sector.
Thank you, Nii. Is there, Trace, I see that you would like to share.
Yes, if I may add two things. Actually, we have worked with several banks on building robot traders, helping them automatize all the prediction of market prices, hedging their risks, accelerate the finding opportunities, investment opportunities. That's for financial markets, I will say, on the capital market side. On the wealth management, we have built several wealth robot advisors, which are used by banks to help their clients find out what kind of level of investment they should, how much saving they should have, how to invest it, and make the gap of the training or the long training of their distribution network, make it much shorter, because you bring the knowledge directly to your clients. These are two products we have. And the final one I would like to touch point on is on the identification of anomalies and basically fraud detection. bluntly speaking. And this, thanks to technologies like the computer power of NVIDIA, we had the ability to do it on the flow or on the run in real time. And there is no lag between when the transaction is asked and accepting it, and saying that in addition to accept it, because the transaction is made, but you can also say there is X% probability that this transaction is fine, or there is potential fraud. And this is 3 examples of how AI can help financial institutions, and that's the reason I was talking about this kind of collaboration, because a startup or fintech startup doesn't have the level of clients or the volume of clients which can help justify this kind of investments. Whereas when you take an existing bank who have 10,000s of clients or even more, or 100,000 of clients, it's the investment, it's much interesting, and it brings value very quickly to them.
Thank you, Dries. There is one last question from the audience, which I think is aimed mostly at Ken and Danesserat. To build an AI-based financial system or banking system, we need to do analysis of a lot of customer data, behavior, and transaction. How are African regulators going to deal with new projects who need this data to work, keeping data privacy, security, and laws such as GDPR in mind?
I can take it, Kate. As I mentioned, with respect to Mauritius, we have a 2-stage process. One is the sandboxing, and which we are now adding to it lab of innovation lab for these testing to be carried out, in which we are making arrangements from the a number of players of the sector, whether insurance, banks, and other financial service providers, to provide data that can be used. It could be anonymized, but that can be used for those testing cases. So that's one part of our commitment. And the second part is when these operate, it depends on the service that they are trying to provide and the data that they would be able to lean upon. So there are a number of regulations that come and which basically are already enabling a part of, or a bigger chunk of the data to be shared. I can say that, for instance, in Mauritius, we have built what we call an info highway, through which a number of data, such as consumer information, people information, are accessible through a given set of conditions. So the conditions or the ecosystem for such services are being provided, but in a controlled manner. So that's in short what we are doing and what could be therefore made available to other countries also.
Thank you. It's really interesting to hear how, from a leadership perspective, how Mauritius is addressing privacy, data privacy challenges in AI. That brings us to actually the close of the webinar. I would like to thank all the panelists for their different perspectives today. I think it's been a great discussion, and I would like to hand it over to Johan for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate, for a great moderation. It has been a great conversation. Jochen Biederman is the General Manager of the World Alliance of International Financial Centers, and he will be giving us the final remarks. Jochen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, first of all, let me thank all speakers for their great insights, and Kate, of course, for your excellent moderation, and Manal for guiding us so well through the event. The colleagues of Casablanca Finance Center, I also want to thank for hosting this webinar so perfectly, and also my colleague ALMT for the great preparation. Very much appreciated indeed. As the Honorable Minister stated in his welcome, innovation and technology are key engines for economic growth, with artificial intelligence as perhaps the most relevant new technology. I was very much impressed to hear today what is already going on in artificial intelligence in finance, in our 3 member countries, Mauritius, Morocco, and Rwanda, but also in Ghana, South Africa, and other places in Africa. I'm delighted to see so much grassroots developments out of tech hubs, we heard this, and local developer bases almost everywhere. I think it has become clear from the discussion we had what a critical role artificial intelligence can and will play in the African financial industry. Most likely, it will become a key enabler for new and better services for African consumers and business, and also strongly support financial inclusion. It is therefore all the more critical that the African financial centers exchange views and best practices on this topic. At the World Alliance of International Financial Centers, in addition to artificial intelligence, we regularly discuss developments in fintech, inclusive finance, sustainable finance, financing of small and medium-sized enterprises, and of course, over the past 15 months, how financial centers can support the post-pandemic economic recovery. Please check our website for several publications on those topics, which you hopefully find interesting. Furthermore, please consider following our work. The best way to do so is to subscribe to our monthly newsletters or our social media channels on LinkedIn and Twitter. Finally, I want to thank you very much for joining our webinar, also on behalf of our partners, the World Economic Forum and NVIDIA. The next webinar in this series will take place on September 15th, focusing on Asia. We would be delighted to welcome you back.
Thank you very much, Jochen, for your closing remarks. This concludes our remarks for today. Again, a big thank you to everyone, co-hosts, speakers, and the audience. Please be safe out there, and we hope to see you all very soon. This concludes our broadcast for today. Bye-bye.